Emma Whitmore stood in front of the small mirror in the church back room. Her hands shook as she fixed her white dress one more time. The dress was old. It belonged to Mrs. Henderson, who ran the boarding house. Mrs. Henderson said it would bring Emma good luck. Emma hoped that was true. Today was her wedding day. She was going to marry Thomas Caldwell. Thomas was the son of the richest man in Willow Creek. Emma had never talked to Thomas much. She could not talk at all. When she was 8 years old, a bad accident hurt her throat. The doctors said she would never speak again. Emma touched the scar on her neck. It was small, but she always tried to hide it. People in town looked at her, strange when they saw it. They whispered things about her. They said she was broken. They said no man would want a wife who could not talk. But Thomas was different, she told herself. His father made a deal with her guardian, Mr. Parsons. Mr. Parsons took care of Emma after her parents died. He said Thomas needed a wife and Emma needed a husband. It was perfect, he said. Emma walked to the church door. She could hear people talking inside. The whole town came to watch. Mrs. Henderson gave her a small bunch of wild flowers. "You look beautiful, dear," she whispered. Emma smiled and nodded. She wrote "thank you" on a small piece of paper. The church doors opened. Emma saw all the faces looking at her. Some people smiled, others just stared. She walked slowly down the middle of the church. Her dress was too long. She had to be careful not to trip. Thomas stood at the front of the church. He wore a black suit. His hair was neat and clean. He looked handsome. But when Emma got closer, she saw his face. Thomas was not smiling. His eyes looked angry. He kept looking at her throat where the scar was. The preacher, Pastor Miller, started to talk. "We are here today to join Thomas and Emma in marriage." His voice was loud in the quiet church. Emma tried to smile at Thomas, but Thomas would not look at her eyes. He only stared at her neck. Pastor Miller talked about love and marriage. He talked about how husbands and wives should care for each other. Emma listened to every word. She hoped Thomas was listening too. "Do you, Thomas Caldwell, take Emma to be your wife?" Pastor Miller asked. Thomas looked at Emma. Then he looked at all the people in the church. His face turned red. "No," he said loudly. "I will not marry her." The church became very quiet. Emma felt her heart stop. What did he say? "I will not marry a broken woman," Thomas said louder. "Look at her, she cannot even talk. What kind of wife would that be? My father made a mistake. I want a real woman, not this." People in the church started to whisper. Some laughed. Emma felt her face get hot. She wanted to run away, but her legs would not move. "Thomas," Pastor Miller said quietly, "you cannot do this." "I can do what I want," Thomas said. "I am not marrying someone who is damaged goods." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She looked around the church. Some people looked sorry for her, but many others nodded like they agreed with Thomas. Mrs. Patterson from the store shook her head. "Poor girl," she said, but not in a kind way. Mr. Caldwell, Thomas's father, stood up. He was a big man with a gray beard. "Son, we had a deal with Mr. Parsons." "You made the deal, not me," Thomas said. "Find someone else to marry her. Maybe someone who needs her money more than I do." Emma knew there was no money. Mr. Parsons told her that. He said the Caldwells wanted to marry her because she would be a quiet wife. She would not argue or cause trouble. But now she understood. They thought she was worth nothing. Mr. Parsons walked up to Emma. His face was angry. "You did something wrong," he said to her. "You made him change his mind." Emma shook her head. She had done nothing wrong. She had been quiet and good, just like always. "Maybe if you could talk like a normal woman," Mrs. Johnson called out from her seat. "Men want wives who can speak to them and sing to their children," added another woman. "She is cursed," old Mr. Henley said. "God took her voice for a reason." Emma heard all their words. Each one hurt like a knife. She had lived in this town for 10 years. These people knew her. They knew she was kind. She helped at the school. She made clothes for people who needed them. She took care of sick animals. But none of that mattered now. She turned and ran toward the door. Her dress caught on a chair and she almost fell. Behind her, she heard people talking and laughing. Thomas was already walking away. He did not even look back at her. Emma ran outside into the bright sun. The main street was empty. Everyone was in the church. She could still hear voices inside. They were probably talking about her, saying how they always knew this would happen. She ran to the creek behind the church. It was the only quiet place she knew. The water moved slowly over the rocks. She sat down on a fallen log and put her head in her hands. Her beautiful dress was getting dirty, but she did not care. Why was she born this way? Why could she not talk, like other people? She tried so hard to be good, she worked hard, she was kind to everyone, but it was not enough. It would never be enough. Emma took out the small piece of paper she always carried. She wrote with the pencil she kept in her dress pocket. "I am not broken," she wrote. But as she looked at the words, she wondered if they were true. The sun was getting lower in the sky. Soon it would be dark. Emma did not want to go back to town. She did not want to see the people who laughed at her. She did not want to see Mr. Parsons, who would be angry with her. She heard a horse coming down the road. Emma wiped her eyes and tried to make herself look better. She did not want anyone to see her crying. But when she looked up, she saw a man she did not know riding toward the creek. The man on the horse was tall and had dark hair. His clothes were dusty from traveling. He looked like a cowboy. His horse was brown with white spots. When he saw Emma sitting by the creek, he stopped his horse and got down. Emma stood up quickly. She did not know this man. Maybe she should run back to town. But her legs felt tired from all the running. "Ma'am," the man said, taking off his hat. "Are you all right?" Emma nodded, but she knew her face was red from crying. She pointed toward the church to show him she was fine. The man looked at her wedding dress. Then he looked at her face again. "I was riding past the church," he said slowly. "I heard what happened in there." Emma felt her cheeks get hot again. This stranger heard Thomas say those terrible things about her. He heard the whole town laugh. She looked down at her dirty dress. "My name is Jake Morrison," the man said. "I have a ranch about 50 miles north of here." He put his hat back on his head. "I was just passing through town to buy supplies." Emma nodded but did not move. She did not know what to say. She could not say anything anyway. Jake looked around at the creek and the trees. "This is a nice spot," he said. "Peaceful." He sat down on a rock near the water. "Sometimes when things get bad, I like to sit by water too. It helps me think." Emma was surprised. This man was not asking her questions about why she could not talk. He was not looking at her scar. He was just sitting there like it was normal to find a woman in a wedding dress by a creek. "I heard that man in the church say some very mean things," Jake said. "Things that were not true." Emma looked at him with surprise. "Not true?" Everyone in town thought those things were true. Jake picked up a small stone and threw it in the water. "I have been around people and animals my whole life," he said. "I learned that just because someone is different does not mean they are broken." Emma sat back down on her log. She was curious about this stranger who said such different things. "Had a horse once," Jake continued. "She was born with only one good eye. The man who sold her to me said she was no good, said I should just put her down. But I took her home anyway." Emma listened carefully. She wondered why he was telling her this story. "That horse turned out to be the smartest horse I ever had," Jake said. "She could do things other horses could not do. She listened better because she had to. She was more careful because she knew she was different. She lived for 20 years and saved my life more than once." Emma understood. Jake was talking about her too, not just the horse. "Sometimes," Jake said, "what makes someone different is what makes them special." Emma took out her paper and pencil. She wrote, "Thank you for being kind." She showed it to Jake. Jake read the words and smiled. "You write very nice," he said. "Clear and neat. That is a good skill." Emma wrote again. I cannot talk. My throat was hurt when I was little. I figured that, Jake said. But you can hear fine, and you can think fine, and you can write fine. That is more than a lot of people can do. Emma had never thought about it that way. She always thought about what she could not do, not what she could do. Where will you go now? Jake asked gently. Emma wrote, I do not know. I live with Mr. Parsons, but he will be angry with me. It is not your fault what happened, Jake said. That man Thomas showed his true colors. You are better off without him. Emma wrote, Nobody will want to marry me now. The whole town saw. What happened? Jake was quiet for a moment. He threw another stone in the water. Can I ask you something? He said. Emma nodded. Do you want to get married? Or do you just think you have to? Emma thought about this. She had never been asked what she wanted before. Mr. Parsons always told her what she would do. The town always told her what she should want. She wrote slowly, I want a home. I want to belong somewhere. I want someone to care about me. Jake read her words. That is different from just wanting to get married, he said. Emma nodded. It was different. She did not really want to marry Thomas. She just wanted to not be alone anymore. I have an idea, Jake said. It might sound strange, but I want you to think about it. Emma looked at him with curiosity. My ranch is big, but I live there alone, Jake said. I have some men who work for me, but they live in the bunkhouse. The main house is just me. Emma wondered what he was going to say. I could use help at the ranch, Jake continued. Someone to cook and clean and take care of things. Someone to help with the injured animals. I am not good at sewing or mending things. Emma's eyes got wide. Was he offering her work? You could have your own room, Jake said. I would pay you fair wages. You would be safe there, and you would not have to marry anyone you do not want to marry. Emma stared at him. This was not what she expected to happen today. I am not asking you to marry me, Jake said quickly. I am offering you a job and a safe place to live. You can decide what you want to do with your life. Emma wrote, Why would you help me? You do not know me. Jake looked at the water for a long time before he answered. I know what it feels like to be alone, he said quietly. I know what it feels like when people think you are not good enough. Emma saw sadness in his eyes. This man had his own pain. Also, Jake said with a small smile, you seem like a good person. You take care of yourself. You are clean and neat. You can write well. Those are all good things for someone who works on a ranch. Emma thought about his offer. It sounded too good to be true. But Jake seemed honest. His eyes were kind. She wrote, What if Mr. Parsons says no? Mr. Parsons is not your father, Jake said. You are old enough to make your own choices. Besides, after today, I think he might be happy to have you go somewhere else. Emma knew that was probably true. Mr. Parsons would not want to deal with her after this embarrassment. She wrote, When would we leave? Right now, if you want, Jake said. I have my horse and I can get another one in town. We can be at my ranch by tomorrow night. Emma looked back toward the church. She could still hear voices. Soon everyone would come out and look for her. They would whisper and point. Some would be mean. Others would just feel sorry for her. She looked at Jake. He was waiting for her answer. He was not pushing her. He was not telling her what she should do. For the first time in her life, Emma had a real choice. She could go back to town and live with the shame, or she could go with this kind stranger and start something new. Emma wrote one word on her paper, yes. Jake smiled when he saw Emma's answer. Good, he said. Let me go get you a horse and some supplies. You wait here. Emma nodded. She watched Jake ride back toward town. Part of her wondered if he would really come back. Maybe this was all a, dream. While she waited, Emma looked at herself in the creek water. Her wedding dress was dirty and torn. Her hair was messy from running. But for the first time all day, she did not look scared. Jake came back in an hour. He had a gentle brown horse with him. He also had a bag of supplies and a coat for Emma to wear. "The horse's name is Daisy," Jake said as he helped Emma climb up. "She is very calm. She will take good care of you." Emma had not ridden a horse much, but Daisy was easy to sit on. Jake showed her how to hold the reins. "We will ride slow," Jake said. "It will take us all day and part of tomorrow to get to my ranch." As they left Willow Creek, Emma did not look back. She was starting a new life. She did not know what it would be like, but it had to be better than what she was leaving behind. They rode through open fields and rolling hills. Jake told Emma about his ranch while they traveled. He said it was in a valley with a river running through it. He had cattle and horses. He grew some crops too. "I built the house myself 5 years ago," Jake said. "It is not fancy, but it is strong and warm." Emma enjoyed listening to Jake talk. His voice was calm and peaceful. He did not try to make her talk back. When she wanted to say something, she would write it down and show him when they stopped to rest. That night they camped under the stars. Jake made a fire and cooked beans and bread. Emma helped by gathering wood and water. She was good at camp work because she had to do many things for Mr. Parsons. "Tomorrow we will be home," Jake said as they sat by the fire. Emma wrote, "Home." The word looked strange on her paper. She had not had a real home since her parents died. "Do you remember your parents?" Jake asked gently. Emma nodded and wrote, "They died when I was 10. After my accident, they were good people." "What happened to your throat?" Jake asked. "You do not have to tell me if you do not want to." Emma thought for a moment. She had never told anyone the whole story, but Jake felt safe. She wrote, "I fell down a well. I was stuck for 2 days. I screamed for help so much that I hurt my throat forever. Mr. Parsons pulled me out. He said I owed him my life." Jake's face got angry. "That is not how life works," he said. "You do not owe someone your whole life because they helped you once." Emma had never thought about it that way either. Mr. Parsons always said she had to obey him because he saved her. The next day they rode into a beautiful valley. Emma saw green grass and trees everywhere. A clear river ran down the middle. Cattle were eating grass in the fields. It looked like a picture from a book. "There is the ranch house," Jake said, pointing ahead. Emma saw a wooden house with a big porch. It was painted white with blue shutters. There were flowers growing around the front steps. Behind the house were barns and fences. Everything looked clean and well cared for. A dog came running to meet them. He was brown and white with a wagging tail. "That is Rusty," Jake said. "He likes everyone." Rusty jumped up on Emma's horse. Emma reached down and petted his head. She had always loved animals. 3 men came out of one of the barns. Jake called to them, "Boys, come meet Emma. She is going to help us keep this place running right." The men walked over. They took off their hats when they saw Emma. Jake told Emma their names. There was Pete, who was old with gray hair. There was Carlos, who was young and smiled a lot. And there was Big Jim, who was tall and quiet. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Emma," Pete said. "We sure could use help around here. Jake burns everything. He tries to cook." "I do not burn everything," Jake said, laughing. "Only most things." The men laughed too. Emma could tell they were good friends with Jake. They treated him with respect, but also like family. Jake helped Emma down from her horse. "Let me show you the house," he said. The inside of the house was simple, but nice. There was a big kitchen, with a wood stove. There was a sitting room with comfortable chairs. Everything was clean, but Emma could tell a man lived there alone. "This room can be yours," Jake said, opening a door. "It has a good bed and a chest for your clothes." The room was small but bright. It had a window that looked out at the mountains. There was a quilt on the bed that looked handmade. "My wife made that quilt," Jake said quietly. Emma looked at him with surprise. She wrote, "You have a wife?" "I had a wife." Jake said sadly. She died 3 years ago. She and our little girl both got sick with fever. I could not save them. Emma's heart hurt for Jake. She wrote, "I am sorry." "Thank you," Jake said. "That is why I live alone now. I have not wanted anyone else in this house since they died. But when I saw you today, I thought maybe it was time." Emma understood. Jake was lonely too. Maybe helping her would help him too. "Are you hungry?" Jake asked. "I can try to cook something." Emma shook her head and wrote, "I can cook. I would like to." "Really?" Jake said. "That would be wonderful." Emma went to the kitchen and looked around. There was food in the pantry, but it was not organized well. She could see that Jake tried to keep things clean, but he was not very good at cooking. She started making dinner. She found flour and made biscuits. She found vegetables and made soup. Jake sat at the kitchen table and watched her work. "You are very good at this," he said. Emma smiled. Cooking made her feel useful. At Mr. Parsons' house, she did all the cooking and cleaning. But there, no one said thank you. Here, Jake seemed happy to have her help. When dinner was ready, Jake called the other men to come eat. They all sat around the big kitchen table. The men were amazed by Emma's cooking. "Miss Emma," Carlos said, "this is the best meal we have had in years." "Jake," Big Jim said, "you better treat Miss Emma real good or we might steal her away from you." Everyone laughed, including Emma. She had not laughed in a long time. After dinner, Emma cleaned the dishes while Jake sat with his men on the porch. She could hear them talking and laughing outside. It sounded like a happy family. When the kitchen was clean, Emma went to her room. She looked out the window at the stars. They seemed brighter here than in town. She took out her paper and wrote, in her journal, "Today my life changed. I do not know what will happen next. But for the first time, I feel hope." Emma got ready for bed. The quilt was soft and warm. The bed was comfortable. Outside, she could hear the river running and the cattle moving in the fields. As she closed her eyes, Emma thought about how different this day had ended from how it started. This morning she thought she would be Mrs. Thomas Caldwell. Now she was Emma, the woman who worked on Jake Morrison's ranch. She liked this ending much better. Emma fell asleep listening to the peaceful sounds of her new home. Tomorrow she would start her new life. For the first time since her parents died, Emma felt like she belonged somewhere. Emma woke up to the sound of birds singing outside her window. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. She was at Jake's ranch. She was safe. She got dressed and went to the kitchen. Jake was already there trying to make coffee. The kitchen was a mess. "Good morning," Jake said with a sheepish smile. "I was trying to start breakfast, but I think I made things worse." Emma laughed silently and shook her head. She wrote, "Let me help." She cleaned up Jake's mess and made fresh coffee. She cooked eggs and bacon and more biscuits. Soon the kitchen smelled wonderful. "You are amazing," Jake said as he ate. "I have been eating burned food for 3 years." After breakfast, Jake showed Emma around the ranch. They walked to the barns where the horses lived. Emma loved the horses. They were gentle and beautiful. "Do you know how to take care of horses?" Jake asked. Emma nodded and wrote, "My father taught me before he died." "Good," Jake said. "The horses need someone with a gentle touch." They visited the cattle in the fields. Emma saw that some of the cows had baby calves with them. The babies were so cute that Emma clapped her hands with joy. Jake smiled when he saw how happy the animals made Emma. "You have a good way with them," he said. "They like you already." Emma spent the morning learning about the ranch work. She helped Pete feed the chickens. She helped Carlos fix a broken fence. She learned where everything was kept. "Miss Emma," Pete said while they worked, "you sure do catch on fast. Most city folk do not know how to work with their hands," Emma wrote. "I like to work. It makes me feel useful." "Well, you are more than useful," Pete said. "You are a blessing to this place." At lunchtime, Emma made sandwiches for everyone. The men sat in the shade and ate together. Emma listened to them talk about the work that needed to be done. The north pasture needs new fence posts, Big Jim said. And we need to check on the cattle up in the hills, Carlos added. The roof on the barn has some loose boards too, Pete said. Jake nodded. We have a lot of work to do before winter comes. Emma wrote a note and showed it to Jake. Can I help with these jobs? You do not have to do ranch work, Jake said. You are doing plenty already. Emma wrote, I want to help. I am strong. Jake looked at her small hands and thought for a moment. All right, he said, but only if you want to. And only safe jobs. That afternoon, Emma worked with the men to fix the chicken coop. She held boards while they hammered. She painted the fence around the garden. She enjoyed working outside in the fresh air. When evening came, Emma cooked a big dinner. She made beef stew and cornbread. For dessert, she made apple pie with apples from Jake's tree. Miss Emma, Carlos said, if you keep cooking like this, we are all going to get fat. Good fat, Big Jim said, patting his stomach. Happy fat. After dinner, the men went to their bunkhouse. Jake helped Emma clean the dishes. Emma, Jake said as they worked, can I ask you something personal? Emma nodded. Were you happy living with Mr. Parsons? Emma thought about her answer. She wrote, no. He was not mean, but he was not kind either. He made me feel like I was a burden. You are not a burden, Jake said firmly. You are a gift. Emma felt her cheeks get warm. No one had ever called her a gift before. Can I tell you about my wife? Jake asked. Emma nodded. She wanted to know about the woman who made the beautiful quilt. Jake sat down at the table and looked out the window. Her name was Sarah. We met when we were very young. She was the prettiest girl in town and the smartest too. Emma listened carefully. We got married when I was 22. We were so happy. We built this ranch together. Sarah loved the animals, as much as I did. Jake's voice got sad. We tried for years to have children. Finally, Sarah had our daughter Mary. She was the most beautiful little girl you ever saw. Emma could see the love in Jake's eyes when he talked about his family. Mary was only 2 when they both got sick, Jake continued. The fever came so fast. The doctor could not help them. I watched them die and could not do anything to save them. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She wrote, that must have been terrible. I thought I would die too, Jake said. For a long time, I did not want to live. This house felt so empty. Everything reminded me of them. Emma understood that kind of sadness. She felt it when her parents died. Why did you help me? Emma wrote. Jake was quiet for a long time. I think, he said slowly, Sarah would have wanted me to help you. She always said everyone deserves kindness. And maybe, he paused, maybe, I was tired of being alone. Emma wrote, I understand being alone. I know you do, Jake said. That is why I think we can help each other. Over the next few weeks, Emma settled into life on the ranch. Every day she learned something new. She learned how to milk the cows. She learned how to gather eggs without scaring the chickens. She learned how to grow vegetables in the garden. Jake taught her how to ride horses better. Emma loved riding across the fields in the early morning. The air was fresh and clean. The mountains looked purple in the distance. You have a natural seat, Jake told her. You are not afraid of the horses. Emma wrote, they are gentle creatures. Like you. Jake blushed a little at the compliment. Emma also learned about the men who worked on the ranch. Pete had worked for Jake for 8 years. He was like an uncle to Jake. Carlos had come from Mexico to find work. He sent money to his family back home. Big Jim used to be a soldier, but he liked ranch work better than fighting. We are like a family here, Pete told Emma one day. A strange family, but a good one. Emma felt like part of that family. For the first time since her parents died, she felt like she belonged somewhere. But one morning, everything changed. Emma was hanging clothes on the line when she saw a wagon coming down the road. As it got closer, she saw who was in it. Mr. Parsons and Thomas Caldwell. Emma's heart started beating fast. What did they want? Why were they here? She ran to find Jake. He was in the barn fixing a saddle. Emma showed him her note. Mr. Parsons is here with Thomas. Jake's face got serious. Stay behind me, he said. Let me talk to them. They walked outside together. Mr. Parsons and Thomas had stopped their wagon in front of the house. Both men looked angry. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Parsons called out. I want to talk to you about the girl. Her name is Emma, Jake said calmly. And she works for me now. She belongs to me, Mr. Parsons said, getting down from the wagon. I am her legal guardian. You had no right to take her. I did not take her, Jake said. She chose to come with me. Thomas got down from the wagon too. He looked at Emma with disgust. We have decided to give her another chance, he said. She can still marry me if she behaves better. Emma stepped closer to Jake. She shook her head. She does not want to marry you, Jake said. She made that clear. What she wants does not matter, Mr. Parsons said. I have papers that say I make decisions for her. Mr. Parsons pulled out some official-looking documents. She signed a contract to marry Thomas. She has to honor that contract. Emma's eyes got wide. She had never signed anything. She wrote quickly and showed Jake her note. I never signed any papers. She says she never signed anything, Jake told the men. She cannot speak for herself, Thomas said. How do we know what she really thinks? Because I can read, Jake said angrily. And she writes very clearly. Writing is not the same as talking, Mr. Parsons said. Emma is not capable of making her own decisions. That is why I am her guardian. Emma felt sick. Were they going to make her go back? Were they going to force her to marry Thomas? Jake stepped in front of Emma. She is staying here, he said. She is an adult and she can choose where she wants to live. We will see about that, Mr. Parsons said. I am going to talk to the sheriff. Emma belongs to me and I want her back. The two men got back in their wagon and drove away. Emma was shaking. Jake put his hand on her shoulder. Do not worry, he said. I will not let them take you. But Emma was very worried. What if the law was on their side? What if she had to go back to a life she did not want? For the first time since coming to the ranch, Emma was afraid. 2 days later, the sheriff came to the ranch. He was a big man with a badge on his chest. Behind him rode Mr. Parsons and Thomas. Emma saw them coming and her heart sank. Jake met them in the yard. Pete, Carlos, and Big Jim came out of the barn to stand with him. Emma stayed on the porch, but she could hear everything. Mr. Morrison, the sheriff said, I am Sheriff Williams. I need to talk to you about the woman you have here. Her name is Emma, Jake said again, and she is here because she wants to be. Sheriff Williams got down from his horse. He looked tired, like he did not want to be there. I have been shown some papers, the sheriff said. Mr. Parsons here says he is the legal guardian of the woman. He says she signed a contract to marry Mr. Caldwell. She never signed anything, Jake said, and she does not want to marry him. How can you be sure? The sheriff asked. She cannot speak, can she? She can write, Jake said. She can think. She can make her own choices. Mr. Parsons spoke up. Sheriff, Emma has been in my care for 10 years. I know what is best for her. This man has taken advantage of a simple-minded girl. Emma felt angry. She was not simple-minded. She wrote a long note quickly. Jake read it and called out to the sheriff. Emma wants to speak for herself. She wrote something for you to read. Emma walked down from the porch. Her hands were shaking, but she gave the note to Sheriff Williams. The sheriff read it slowly. Emma had written, I am not simple-minded. I can think and decide for myself. I never signed any paper to marry Thomas Caldwell. I do not want to marry him. I want to stay here and work for Mr. Morrison. Please do not make me go back to a life I do not choose. Sheriff Williams looked at the note for a long time, then he looked at Emma. Did you write this yourself? He asked. Emma nodded. No one told you what to write? Emma shook her head and pointed to herself. She wrote another note. These are my own words from my own mind. The sheriff showed the note to Mr. Parsons. This does not sound like the writing of a simple person, he said. She is just copying things she has heard other people say, Mr. Parsons argued. She does not really understand what marriage means. Emma got angry. She wrote another note. I understand that marriage means a woman belongs to her husband. I understand that Thomas called me broken and damaged. I understand that he does not want me and I do not want him. I understand more than you think I do. Sheriff Williams read this note too. He looked impressed. Mr. Parsons, the sheriff said, show me this contract you say she signed. Mr. Parsons pulled out a paper. But when the sheriff looked at it, he frowned. This contract is signed by you, Mr. Parsons, the sheriff said. Not by the woman, and it talks about money changing hands. This looks more like you are selling her than her agreeing to marry. I have the right to make arrangements for her, Mr. Parsons said quickly. She is not capable of taking care of herself. She seems to be taking care of herself just fine here, the sheriff said, looking around the neat ranch. Thomas spoke up for the first time. Sheriff, my family has offered good money for this marriage. We are respectable people. This cowboy probably just wants to use her for free work. I pay Emma fair wages, Jake said. She is free to leave anytime she wants. Emma wrote another note and gave it to the sheriff. Mr. Morrison treats me with respect. He pays me for my work. He does not make me do anything I do not want to do. This is the first time in my life I have been treated like a real person. The sheriff read the note and sighed. This is a difficult situation, he said. What is difficult about it? Jake asked. Emma is a grown woman. She should be able to choose where she lives. The law says that Mr. Parsons is her guardian, the sheriff said. Guardians have legal rights. Emma felt her hope disappearing. Was the law going to force her to go back? But then Sheriff Williams continued. However, guardianship is supposed to be for the good of the person. If the guardian is not acting in her best interest, that changes things. Mr. Parsons looked worried. I have always taken good care of Emma. Have you? The sheriff asked. Did you take good care of her when you tried to force her into a marriage she did not want? She needs a husband to take care of her, Mr. Parsons said. She seems to be taking care of herself, the sheriff pointed out. Emma wrote another note. This one was longer. She gave it to the sheriff. The sheriff read it out loud. I want to tell you about my life with Mr. Parsons. He made me do all the cooking and cleaning in his house. He never paid me. He told me I owed him my life because he pulled me out of a well when I was a child. He made me feel like a burden, every day. He never asked what I wanted. He just told me I had to marry Thomas to pay him back for taking care of me. That is not how a guardian should treat someone. When the sheriff finished reading, everyone was quiet. Mr. Parsons, the sheriff said, is this true? I gave her a home, Mr. Parsons said. I fed her and clothed her. But did you treat her fairly? The sheriff asked. Mr. Parsons did not answer. Thomas was getting impatient. Sheriff, this is taking too long. Just make her come back with us. I cannot just make her do anything, the sheriff said. She is a person, not property. She is damaged goods, Thomas said angrily. No one else will want her. Emma felt tears in her eyes. Those words still hurt. But Jake stepped forward. You are wrong, he said to Thomas. Emma is one of the finest people I have ever met. She is kind, smart, hardworking, and brave. Any man would be lucky to know her. Emma looked at Jake with surprise. He really meant those words. The fact that you cannot see her worth says something about you, not about her, Jake continued. Sheriff Williams nodded. Mr. Morrison is right. I can see that Emma is well cared for here. She is clean, healthy, and happy. She is doing good work and earning money. So what are you going to do? Mr. Parsons demanded. The sheriff thought for a moment. I am going to talk to the territorial judge, he said. This case needs someone with more authority than me to decide. When will that be? Jake asked. Judge Harrison will be in Willow Creek next month for the regular court session, the sheriff said. We will have a hearing then. A month? Thomas said. "We have to wait a month." "You have waited this long," the sheriff said. "You can wait a little longer." Mr. Parsons looked angry, but he did not argue with the sheriff. "Until then," Sheriff Williams said, "Emma can stay here. But Mr. Morrison, you need to make sure she appears in court when the judge calls for her." "She will be there," Jake promised. After the men left, Emma sat down on the porch steps. She felt tired and scared. Jake sat down beside her. "Are you all right?" he asked. Emma wrote, "I am scared. What if the judge makes me go back?" "We will not let that happen," Jake said. "We have a month to prepare. We need to show the judge that you are better off here." "How?" Emma wrote. "We need people to speak for you," Jake said. "People who can tell the judge that you are capable of taking care of yourself." Emma thought about this. Who would speak for her? She did not have many friends. "What about the doctor in town?" Jake suggested. "He could examine you and say that you are mentally capable." Emma nodded. That was a good idea. "And maybe the preacher could write a letter about your character," Jake added. "Pastor Miller saw what happened at the church," Emma wrote. "He knows Thomas was cruel to me." "Exactly," Jake said. "We need to gather evidence that shows you are a capable person who deserves to make her own choices." Over the next few days, Jake and Emma worked on her case. They rode to town to see Dr. Peterson, the local doctor. Dr. Peterson was an old man with kind eyes. He examined Emma carefully. "There is nothing wrong with this young woman's mind," he told Jake. "She is as intelligent as anyone I have met. The fact that she cannot speak does not affect her ability to think or make decisions." He wrote a letter saying that Emma was mentally competent to make her own choices. They also visited Pastor Miller. He remembered what happened at the church. "That young man was very cruel," Pastor Miller said. "No woman should be forced to marry someone who treats her that way." Emma seems much happier now. He agreed to write a letter supporting Emma's right to choose where she lived, but the best help came from an unexpected place. Mrs. Henderson from the boarding house came to visit the ranch. "I heard about your trouble," she told Emma. "I want to help." Mrs. Henderson had known Emma for years. She had watched Mr. Parsons treat Emma like a servant instead of a person in his care. "I will testify that Mr. Parsons was not a good guardian," Mrs. Henderson said. "Everyone in town knows he made you work for free and treated you poorly." Emma was surprised. She did not know that other people had noticed how Mr. Parsons treated her. "Many people in town feel bad about what happened at your wedding," Mrs. Henderson continued. "We should have spoken up for you then." Emma wrote, "Why did no one help me before?" Mrs. Henderson looked sad. "Because we were cowards," she said honestly. "Mr. Parsons had influence in town. People were afraid to cross him. But seeing you here, seeing how happy you are, made us realize we were wrong." Emma felt a little hope growing in her heart. Maybe she had more friends than she thought. As the court date got closer, Emma felt nervous, but also determined. She was going to fight for her freedom. She was going to show the judge that she could make her own choices. She just hoped it would be enough. 1 week before the court hearing, a fancy carriage came down the road to Jake's ranch. Emma was feeding the chickens when she saw it. The carriage was black with gold decorations. It was pulled by 2 beautiful white horses. Emma had never seen such a fine carriage in this part of the country. She wondered who could be inside. Jake came out of the barn when he heard the carriage. He looked as surprised as Emma. The carriage stopped in front of the house. A well-dressed woman got out. She wore a dark blue dress with a matching hat. She looked like a lady from the big city. "Excuse me," the woman called out. "I am looking for Mr. Jake Morrison." "That is me," Jake said, walking over. "How can I help you, ma'am?" "My name is Catherine Wells," the woman said. "I believe you knew my sister, Sarah." Jake's face went white. "Sarah was your sister?" "Yes," Catherine said. "She was my younger sister. I came as soon as I heard about your situation." Emma was confused. How did this elegant woman know about their legal troubles? "I received a letter from Pastor Miller," Catherine explained. "He wrote to me about the young woman you are helping. He thought I might be able to assist. Jake looked stunned. I did not know Sarah had a sister. She never talked about family back east. We had a fight before she came west to marry you, Catherine said sadly. I thought she was making a mistake leaving civilization. I said terrible things to her. We did not speak for years. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. When I finally wrote to her wanting to make peace, the letter came back. Someone in town wrote to tell me she had died. I have regretted our fight every day since then. Emma felt sorry for this woman. She understood about regret and lost chances. Why are you here now? Jake asked gently. Because Pastor Miller's letter reminded me of something Sarah always said, Catherine replied. She believed that every person deserves kindness and the right to choose their own path. When I read about this young woman's situation, I knew Sarah would want me to help. Catherine looked at Emma. You must be Emma. Pastor Miller told me about your courage. Emma nodded and wrote a note. I am sorry about your sister. Jake loved her very much. Catherine read the note and smiled through her tears. Thank you, dear. I can see why Jake wants to help you. Sarah would have liked you very much. How can you help us? Jake asked. Catherine straightened her shoulders. I am a lawyer, she said. I studied law back in Philadelphia. I have been fighting for women's rights for many years. Emma's eyes got wide. She had never met a woman lawyer before. I know the territorial laws about guardianship, Catherine continued, and I know how to argue a case in court. Jake looked, hopeful for the first time in weeks. Would you represent Emma in court? I would be honored to, Catherine said. But first, I need to understand the full situation. They spent the rest of the day telling Catherine everything. She asked many questions and took notes in a small book. Mr. Parsons' contract is legally worthless, Catherine said after hearing all the facts. You cannot sell another person into marriage. That is against federal law. But what about the guardianship? Jake asked. That is more complicated, Catherine admitted. Guardianship laws give guardians a lot of power, but they also require guardians to act in the best interest of their ward. Catherine looked at Emma. The key is to show that you are capable of making your own decisions. We need to prove that you do not need a guardian anymore. Emma wrote, How do we do that? We show the court evidence of your independence, Catherine said. Your job here, your ability to manage money, your clear thinking and writing skills. Catherine had brought many law books with her. She spent the evening reading and making notes. I found some cases that might help us, she said. There was a case in Colorado where a woman successfully challenged her guardianship. The judge ruled that being unable to speak did not make someone unable to think. Emma felt a spark of hope. The next morning, Catherine asked to see Emma's work around the ranch. Emma showed her the garden she tended, the chickens she cared for, and the kitchen where she cooked. This is excellent evidence, Catherine said. You are clearly capable of managing your own affairs. Catherine also looked at Emma's writing. Emma had been keeping a journal since she arrived at the ranch. Her writing was clear and thoughtful. Your writing is better than many of my law school classmates, Catherine said with a smile. We will use this to show your intelligence. But Catherine's biggest discovery came when she looked through Mr. Parsons' papers more carefully. Emma, she said excitedly, I need to ask you about your parents' death. Do you remember anything about their property or money? Emma wrote, They owned a small farm. Mr. Parsons said it was sold to pay their debts. Do you have any papers about that? Catherine asked. Emma shook her head. Mr. Parsons kept all the papers. Catherine's eyes lit up. I think Mr. Parsons has been stealing from you, she said. What do you mean? Jake asked. I did some research. In town yesterday, Catherine explained. Your parents' farm was worth a lot of money. It was sold, but the money should have gone into a trust for Emma. Emma stared at Catherine. You mean there was money? I think so, Catherine said. And I think Mr. Parsons kept it for himself. That would explain why he is so desperate to keep control over you. If you are declared independent, you could demand an accounting of your inheritance. Jake looked angry. That snake has been stealing from Emma for years. If I am right, Catherine said, Emma is actually quite wealthy. Her parents left her enough money to live independently for the rest of her life. Emma could not believe it. She had always thought she was poor and had nothing, but maybe she had been cheated out of her inheritance. Can we prove this in court? Jake asked. I am working on it, Catherine said. I have sent telegrams to lawyers in the territorial capital. They are looking into the records of the farm sale. Emma wrote, even if there is money, I still want to stay here. Catherine smiled. Of course, dear, but having your own money would make you completely independent. No one could ever control you again. Over the next few days, Catherine prepared their case. She interviewed Dr. Peterson and Pastor Miller. She talked to Mrs. Henderson and other people in town who had seen how Mr. Parsons treated Emma. She also coached Emma on what to expect in court. The judge will ask you questions, Catherine explained. You can answer by writing, just like you do here. Do not let anyone intimidate you. Emma practiced writing answers to difficult questions. Catherine made her think about what she would say if the judge asked her about marriage or her future plans. Remember, Catherine said, you are fighting for the right to control your own life. That is worth fighting for. 2 days before the court hearing, Catherine received a telegram. She read it and smiled widely. Emma, she said, I have wonderful news. The lawyers found the records. Your parents' farm was sold for $3,000. That money was supposed to be held in trust for you until you turned 21. Emma's jaw dropped. $3,000 was more money than she had ever imagined. Mr. Parsons never put the money in trust, Catherine continued. He kept it for himself. That is theft. What does this mean for the case? Jake asked. It means we can prove that Mr. Parsons is not a good guardian, Catherine said. In fact, he is a criminal. No judge will leave Emma in his care after hearing this. Emma felt excited and scared at the same time. She was going to be free and she was going to have money, but she was also going to have to face Mr. Parsons and Thomas in court. Catherine saw her worried expression. Do not be afraid, she said kindly. I will be right there with you. And remember, you have many people supporting you now. That evening, Jake and Emma sat on the porch watching the sunset. Rusty lay at their feet. Are you ready for tomorrow? Jake asked. Emma wrote, I am nervous, but I am also ready to fight. Whatever happens, Jake said, you will always have a home here. Emma looked at Jake. Over the past months, he had become so important to her. He was kind and patient and good, but she had never told him how she really felt about him. She wrote carefully, Jake, there is something I want you to know. Jake read the note and waited for her to continue. Emma's next note said, I care about you very much, more than just as a friend. I know you still love Sarah, but I wanted you to know how I feel. Jake looked at the note for a long time. Then he looked at Emma. Emma, he said softly, I care about you too. More than I thought I could care about anyone again. Emma's heart started beating fast. I will always love Sarah, Jake continued, but that does not mean I cannot love someone else too. You have brought light back into my life. Emma felt tears of happiness in her eyes. After this court business is over, Jake said, maybe we can talk about our future together. Emma nodded eagerly. No matter what happened in court tomorrow, she knew she had found something precious. She had found love. As they sat together in the peaceful evening, Emma felt stronger than she had ever felt before. She had a good lawyer, she had friends supporting her, and she had Jake's love. Tomorrow she would fight for her freedom, and she was going to win. The morning of the court hearing, Emma woke up early. Her stomach felt nervous, but her mind was clear. Today she would fight for her freedom. Catherine had brought Emma a nice dress to wear to court. It was dark green with a white collar. Emma looked at herself in the mirror and saw a confident woman looking back. She was not the same scared girl who ran from the church months ago. Jake knocked on her door. Are you ready? He asked. Emma nodded and picked up her writing supplies. She had practiced what she wanted to say many times. The whole group rode to town together. Jake, Emma, Catherine, and Pete, Carlos, and Big Jim came to support her. Even Mrs. Henderson met them at the courthouse. "We are all here for you," Mrs. Henderson told Emma. "You are not alone." The courthouse was a big stone building in the center of Willow Creek. Inside, there was a large room with wooden benches. At the front was a high desk where the judge would sit. Emma saw Mr. Parsons and Thomas sitting on one side of the room. They had brought a lawyer from the big city. He wore an expensive suit and looked very serious. Judge Harrison was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked like someone who listened carefully before making decisions. "This court is now in session," the judge said. "We are here to decide the matter of Emma Whitmore's guardianship." The lawyer for Mr. Parsons spoke first. His name was Mr. Sterling. He stood up and talked in a loud voice. "Your Honor," Mr. Sterling said, "my client, Mr. Parsons, has been the faithful guardian of Miss Whitmore for 10 years. She is unable to speak and therefore unable to make important decisions for herself." Emma felt angry, but Catherine had told her to stay calm. "Mr. Parsons arranged a suitable marriage for Miss Whitmore," the lawyer continued. "But she was taken away by Mr. Morrison before the wedding could happen. We asked the court to return Miss Whitmore to her proper guardian." Judge Harrison listened, without showing what he thought. Then Catherine stood up. "Your Honor, I represent Miss Emma Whitmore. We will show that she is fully capable of making her own decisions and that Mr. Parsons has not acted in her best interests." "Proceed," the judge said. Catherine called Dr. Peterson to speak first. The old doctor walked to the front of the room. "Doctor," Catherine said, "you examined Miss Whitmore recently. What did you find?" "Miss Whitmore is in perfect mental health," Dr. Peterson said clearly. "Her inability to speak does not affect her ability to think, reason, or make decisions. She is as mentally capable as any adult." "Thank you, Doctor," Catherine said. Mr. Sterling stood up. "Doctor, how can you be sure she understands complex matters like marriage and legal contracts?" "Because I tested her," Dr. Peterson replied. "I asked her to solve mathematics problems, to read and explain complex passages, and to make logical decisions. She performed better than most people I know." Next, Catherine called Pastor Miller to speak. "Pastor Miller," Catherine said, "you witnessed the scene at Miss Whitmore's intended wedding. Please tell the court what happened." Pastor Miller looked uncomfortable, but he told the truth. "Mr. Caldwell was very cruel to Miss Whitmore. He called her damaged and broken. He refused to marry her in front of the whole congregation." "How did Miss Whitmore react?" Catherine asked. "She maintained her dignity," Pastor Miller said. "She did not cause any trouble. She simply left quietly." "Does she seem capable of understanding what happened?" "Absolutely," Pastor Miller said. "When I spoke with her later, she wrote very clearly about her feelings. She understood exactly what had happened and why." Then Catherine did something surprising. She asked Emma to come to the front of the room. Emma's heart was beating fast, but she walked confidently to the witness chair. "Miss Whitmore," Catherine said, "I'm going to ask you some questions. Please write your answers on this paper so everyone can see." Judge Harrison looked interested. "This is unusual," he said, "but I will allow it." Catherine asked her first question. "Emma, do you understand why we are here today?" Emma wrote clearly, "Yes, we are here to decide if I am capable of making my own decisions about my life." Catherine showed the answer to the judge and then read it out loud. "Do you understand what marriage means?" Catherine asked. Emma wrote, "Marriage means two people choose to build a life together based on love and respect. It should not be forced on anyone." "Do you want to marry Mr. Caldwell?" Emma wrote, "No. He does not respect me, and I do not love him. A marriage without respect or love would be miserable for both people." "What do you want for your future?" Emma wrote a longer answer. "I want to continue working at Mr. Morrison's ranch. I want to care for animals and help with the work there. I want to make my own choices about who I spend time with and how I live my life." Judge Harrison was reading every word carefully. He looked impressed by Emma's clear thinking. Then Mr. Sterling tried to question Emma. "Miss Whitmore, he said in a loud voice. How do we know you are writing your own thoughts and not just copying what others tell you? Emma looked at him calmly and wrote, Because these words come from my own mind and heart. I have thoughts and feelings just like you do. The only difference is that I write them instead of speaking them. Mr. Sterling tried again. But surely you need guidance from a man to make important decisions? Emma's answer made several people in the courtroom smile. I need guidance sometimes, just like everyone does. But I need it from people who respect me and care about my happiness. Mr. Parsons has never asked what I wanted. He only told me what he decided for me. Judge Harrison held up his hand. I think Miss Whitmore has answered enough questions for now. Then Catherine surprised everyone again. Your Honor, I have important evidence about Mr. Parsons' conduct. As a guardian, she pulled out a stack of papers. These are records from the territorial capital. They show that when Miss Whitmore's parents died, their farm was sold for $3,000. The courtroom got very quiet. $3,000 was a lot of money. The law requires that this money be held in trust for Miss Whitmore until she comes of age, Catherine continued. But Mr. Parsons never created such a trust. Instead, he kept the money for himself. Mr. Parsons jumped up from his chair. That is a lie, he shouted. Order, Judge Harrison said firmly. Mr. Parsons, sit down. Catherine handed the papers to the judge. These are official records, Your Honor. They show that Mr. Parsons has been stealing from Miss Whitmore for 10 years. Judge Harrison looked through the papers carefully. His face got more serious with each page. Mr. Parsons, the judge said, these records show that you received $3,000 from the sale of the Whitmore farm. Where is that money now? Mr. Parsons's lawyer whispered something to him quickly. I used the money to care for Emma, Mr. Parsons said weakly. Food and clothing and shelter for 10 years. Catherine stood up. Your Honor, I have receipts showing that Miss Whitmore worked as an unpaid servant in Mr. Parsons' house. She cooked, cleaned, and maintained his household without wages. Far from costing him money, she saved him money. The judge looked very unhappy with Mr. Parsons. This is a serious matter, he said. Catherine was not finished. Your Honor, there is more. I have statements from several people in town saying that Mr. Parsons treated Miss Whitmore poorly and made her feel like a burden rather than a person in his care. Mrs. Henderson stood up in the back of the room. Your Honor, I saw how he treated that poor girl. He never showed her kindness or respect. We all saw it, but we were too cowardly to speak up before now. Several other people in the courtroom nodded their agreement. Judge Harrison looked at Mr. Parsons with disgust. Mr. Parsons, you have clearly failed in your duties as a guardian. In fact, you appear to have committed theft. Then the judge turned to Thomas. Mr. Caldwell, do you still wish to marry Miss Whitmore? Thomas looked around the room nervously. Well, that is, if she has money, then maybe. Stop right there, Judge Harrison said firmly. Your interest in marrying Miss Whitmore only after learning about her inheritance tells me everything I need to know about your character. Emma felt proud as she watched the judge see through Thomas's greed. I have heard enough, Judge Harrison said. This court finds that Miss Emma Whitmore is fully capable of managing her own affairs. The guardianship of Mr. Parsons is hereby terminated. Emma felt her heart soar. She was free. Furthermore, the judge continued, Mr. Parsons will return all of Miss Whitmore's inheritance money with interest. If he cannot do so, he will face criminal charges for theft. Mr. Parsons looked sick. His face was white and he was sweating. As for the marriage contract, Judge Harrison said, it is invalid. No one can be forced into marriage against their will. The judge looked directly at Emma. Miss Whitmore, you are now free to make your own decisions about your life. You may live where you choose and marry whom you choose, if anyone. Emma wrote a note and gave it to Catherine to read. Catherine smiled and read it out loud. Thank you, Your Honor. I choose to continue working at Mr. Morrison's ranch, where I am treated with respect and kindness. The judge smiled too. That sounds like an excellent choice. As they left the courthouse, Emma felt like she was floating. She was free. She had her inheritance. and she had people who cared about her. Outside, Jake took her hands. "How do you feel?" he asked. Emma wrote, "I feel like I can finally breathe. I feel like my life is truly beginning." Catherine hugged Emma goodbye. 6 months after the court hearing, Emma stood in front of the same small mirror where she had prepared for her first wedding. But everything was different now. This time, her dress was one she had made herself. It was cream-colored silk with tiny pearls sewn around the neckline. The dress fit her perfectly because she had made it to fit her own body, not borrowed from someone else. Her hair was arranged in a beautiful style with real flowers from Jake's garden. She wore her mother's earrings, which Catherine had helped her get back from Mr. Parsons along with other family items. Most importantly, Emma's face glowed with happiness. There was no fear in her eyes today, only joy. Mrs. Henderson knocked on the door. "Emma, dear, you look absolutely beautiful." Emma smiled and wrote a note. "Thank you for everything you have done for me." "Nonsense," Mrs. Henderson said with tears in her eyes. "You did this yourself. You found your courage and fought for your happiness." The past 6 months had been the happiest of Emma's life. After the court case, she had used part of her inheritance to improve Jake's ranch. They had built a bigger barn and bought more cattle. Emma had also started a small business making clothes for the ladies in town. But the most wonderful change was in her relationship with Jake. They had spent the winter getting to know each other even better. Jake had taught Emma to read music, even though she could not sing. Emma had taught Jake to appreciate books and poetry. They had long conversations by the fireplace in the evenings. Emma would write her thoughts and Jake would respond out loud. They talked about everything, their childhoods, their dreams, their fears, and their hopes. Jake had proposed to Emma on a beautiful spring morning while they were riding across the ranch. He had gotten down on one knee right there in the field of wildflowers. "Emma," he had said, "I love everything about you. Your kindness, your strength, your beautiful mind, and your gentle heart. Will you marry me?" Emma had written her answer quickly. "Yes, I love you too, completely and forever." Now 6 months later, Emma was ready to become Jake's wife. But not because someone forced her to, because she chose to out of love. Emma walked to the church, but this time she was not alone. Pete, Carlos, and Big Jim walked with her like proud brothers. Catherine had come back from Philadelphia for the wedding. Even Dr. Peterson and Pastor Miller were there to celebrate. The church was decorated with flowers from the ranch. Every seat was filled with people who cared about Emma and Jake. These were not people who came to watch a spectacle. They came to celebrate love. As Emma walked down the aisle, she saw Jake waiting for her at the front of the church. He wore his best suit, and his face was full of love and pride. Next to him stood Rusty, who had a ribbon tied around his neck for the special day. When Emma reached Jake, he took her hands gently. Pastor Miller began the ceremony. "We are gathered here today to join Jake and Emma in marriage. This is a union based on love, respect, and mutual choice." Emma thought about how different these words sounded from the last time she was in this church. "Jake," Pastor Miller said, "do you take Emma to be your wife? Do you promise to love her, respect her, and cherish her for all the days of your life?" "I do," Jake said clearly. "With all my heart." "Emma," Pastor Miller said, "do you take Jake to be your husband? Do you promise to love him, support him, and share your life with him?" Emma had written her vows ahead of time. She handed the paper to Pastor Miller to read. Pastor Miller read Emma's words out loud. "I do take Jake as my husband. I promise to love him with all my heart. I promise to work beside him to build a life of happiness and respect. I promise to be his partner in all things, through good times and hard times, for the rest of my life." There was not a dry eye in the church when Pastor Miller finished reading. Jake had learned some sign language over the winter. He signed "I love you" to Emma as they exchanged rings. Emma signed back "I love you too," and the whole congregation smiled. "By the power given to me," Pastor Miller said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Jake, you may kiss your bride." Jake and Emma's kiss was gentle and full of love. The church erupted in cheers and applause. After the ceremony, everyone went to the ranch for a celebration. Emma had spent weeks preparing food with help from Mrs. Henderson and the other ladies in town. There were tables full of delicious dishes set up in the yard. Pete had made a beautiful wooden arch covered with flowers. Carlos played guitar and sang songs. Big Jim told funny stories about Jake that made everyone laugh. Catherine gave a speech about Emma's courage. 6 months ago, Emma was told she was not good enough for marriage, Catherine said. Today, she marries a man who sees her true worth. This shows that when we fight for what is right, love wins. Everyone cheered and raised their glasses. As the sun began to set, Jake and Emma walked to their favorite spot by the creek. Emma was still wearing her beautiful wedding dress, but now it had grass stains from dancing and playing with the children, who came to the party. "Are you happy, Mrs. Morrison?" Jake asked with a smile. Emma wrote in her little notebook, "I am happier than I ever dreamed possible." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had married Thomas?" Jake asked. Emma wrote, "Sometimes, but I think everything happened the way it was supposed to. If I had married Thomas, I would never have found real love. I would never have found you." Jake sat down on the fallen log where he had first talked to Emma months ago. "You know what I think?" he said. Emma sat beside him and waited for his answer. "I think you were never the silent bride," Jake said. "You have always had a voice. Some people just did not know how to listen." Emma's eyes filled with happy tears. She wrote, "You taught me that being different is not the same as being broken. And you taught me that love can happen twice in one lifetime," Jake replied. "You brought my heart back to life." They sat together watching the stars come out, listening to the sounds of their friends celebrating in the distance. Emma thought about her journey from that terrible day at the church to this perfect evening. She had learned that she was stronger than she ever knew. She had learned that her voice was powerful, even without sound. Most importantly, she had learned that the right person would love all of her, including the parts that made her different. A year later, Emma gave birth to their first child, a daughter they named Sarah Catherine, after Jake's first wife and Emma's lawyer friend. Little Sarah was born healthy and loud, inheriting her father's voice and her mother's determination. Emma found that she could communicate with her baby in ways that amazed everyone. She seemed to understand exactly what Sarah needed, even before the baby could speak. Jake said Emma had a special gift for understanding without words. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Emma's sewing business became famous throughout the territory. Women came from far away to buy her beautiful dresses and quilts. Emma also started teaching other children who had disabilities. She showed them that being different did not mean being less valuable. She taught them to write and read and take care of themselves. Jake and Emma had 2 more children over the years, a son named David and another daughter named Grace. All 3 children learned both spoken language and sign language. Their home was filled with laughter and love in many forms. People in Willow Creek often talked about Jake and Emma's love story. Parents told their children about the woman who could not speak but whose actions spoke louder than words. They told about the man who saw past her silence to her beautiful heart. Mr. Parsons had to sell his house to pay back Emma's inheritance. He left town in shame and was never seen again. Thomas tried to court several other women, but word of his cruelty to Emma had spread. No respectable woman would have him. Emma never regretted the path that led her to Jake. Every difficulty had made her stronger. Every rejection had led her closer to true acceptance. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Jake and Emma stood again by the creek where their love story began. Their 3 children played nearby while Rusty, now old and gray, watched over them. "Do you remember what you wrote on that first day?" Jake asked. "You wrote that you wanted a home and someone to care about you." Emma smiled and wrote in the notebook she still always carried. "I got so much more than I asked for. I got a partner, a family, and a love that grows stronger every day." "What would you tell that scared girl who ran from the church all those years ago?" Jake asked. Emma thought for a moment and then wrote, I would tell her to be patient. I would tell her that the right person will see her worth. I would tell her that being different is not a curse. It is a gift that helps her recognize true love when it comes. Jake read her words and nodded. And I would tell that lonely cowboy that healing is possible, even when you think your heart is broken forever. As they walked back to their house, Emma reflected on how completely her life had changed. She had gone from being nobody's bride to being the beloved wife of a good man. She had gone from having no voice to being heard and respected by everyone who knew her. Emma had learned the most important lesson of all. She was never broken. She was simply waiting for someone who could see her wholeness. Their love story became legendary in the territory. People said that if you really loved someone, you could communicate without words. They said that true love was not about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone who thought,